if $1 billion company comes to you and you're the inventor and you have a patent, and they say, I love your product, I love your patent, I want to license it and pay you $4.2 million. You take that deal. Take that deal.
Welcome to Invention Stories on YouTube. My name is Robert Baer. I'm your host, and this interview was previously recorded May 25th, 2018.
You're listening to our interview with Carrie Jeske, who invented the sports shade. She now promotes low-cost, high-return inventing strategies. This is not a paid advertisement nor endorsement. Just wanted to share great information from lessons learned. So I'd like to start off with the beginning. What kind of kid were you?
I was really more of a very active child, kind of a tomboy, I guess. I just like to be doing things all the time. So playing sports and hanging out and running around the neighborhood like a crazy kid.
Did you know any inventors growing up?
I don't think back then we really called people inventors. They were more repurposer or gadget people. Like my grandmother always repurposed the kitchen bags to take out the garbage. And my dad was a mechanic, so he was kind of a tinkerer and always putting different things together to solve a problem. So I think that's probably where I got my creative part from them.
Did you grow up in Kansas or in Missouri?
I'm on the Missouri side, right up by the airport. So been here all my life, except for I spent some time in Arlington, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area for a while, about 4 years there. But I've lived pretty much in Kansas City most of the time. But thankfully, I get to travel quite a bit. So I've had the pleasure of getting to see a lot of different parts of the United States, as well as a lot of international travel. So I feel very fortunate in that way.
So you attended Kansas State. You got your bachelor's degree in political science, minor in Middle Eastern studies. And then I see that you got your master's degree in organizational development and marketing at Webster University from 92 to 97. So what did you do between then? Did you try to make the career out of being a political scientist?
Well, I thought I was going to do that. I actually really believed I was going to be president of the United States at one point in my life, actually for quite a long point in my life. But I was a big softball player, had a couple softball scholarships to colleges, but I was a little bit of a wild child in high school, so I didn't have the grades, never really applied myself. So I wasn't going to get to do the softball scholarships because they couldn't academically let me into the school. And my husband was an engineer. He's always a real smart guy, and we dated back in high school. We were kind of lifelong sweethearts, and he's 2 years older, so he was at K-State. And we actually had to convince my father to pay out-of-state tuition, let me go to K-State, and, just go as a school because I wasn't going to play softball. I knew there was no future in that. And I had to call the dean of admissions and negotiate myself into the school to begin with. And I just straightened up. At that point, I was like, man, I got to, take control of my life. I'm an adult now. So I changed my ways and just soared through college. I had to get out in 3 years with 2 degrees and a minor, and I thought I was going to be an attorney or a politician. But, as I began to go through that, I realized, I don't know, maybe business would be a better road because a lot of people can't succeed in politics without a lot of funding. So I thought business would probably be a stronger way to go. So after college, I just went to work in the workforce trying to figure out how to do it, how to start my own business, and spent time at big companies and got on the sales and marketing side of big corporations. And thankfully, big companies like Motorola and others have really good training and development. And I found that that was actually more beneficial to me than what I had learned in college because it was more practical, more applicable to everyday life where you have a lot of variables. So from there, I just began to see how companies and people can work together to achieve greater goals and worked my way up from there. Ended up going back and getting the master's. I think the education has been good from a standpoint of having access to a broad base of information. But the challenge with academics is it limits all the variables and isolates them in an unrealistic way. So from a knowledge standpoint, it's great. But from a practical application in a real world, there's just too many variables in the real world. And as an entrepreneur and a business person, you have to be able to juggle a lot of plates. There's a lot of variables coming at you. So it's more difficult.
How did the invention bug develop in you?
My husband and I were in our 40s, and we had played competitive softball for a long time. He had a career as a structural engineer, and I had a great career. I was president of a technology company, so I'd worked my way up to senior management. And we were both doing really well. And we played competitive softball with people that we were getting older. We started to be in our 40s. And we were playing against these 20-year-olds, and it was hot in the summer. And we needed shade, and we needed fast shade, portable shade. And so I said to Stuart, can you come up with something? Can you jiffy rig me something that we can use? And he did. He came up with a product called Sport Shade. It's a portable retractable awning, and it was designed originally to go in and out of the dugouts fast. And that's what we used it for. And then we thought, you know what, let's cash it all in and raise money. And so we sent out letters to our friends and family. And on one Saturday afternoon, I think I sent out about 400 letters. 48 people registered for our meeting. 24 actually showed up. And we raised a couple $100,000 on that one Saturday afternoon. And we thought, let's do it. So the inventing bug began 20 years ago.
You seem to be brimming with confidence. Where do you think all that confidence come from?
That's a great question. I think I am very confident. I wonder if it's a fake it till you make it, or I don't know. I'm a very faith-filled person. My belief system is through the Christian doctrine, but I'm just a very spirit-filled, faith-filled person. And I do believe that I can accomplish things. I'm naturally a hard worker. I've always been a hard worker. I've enjoyed working, so I don't mind trying. And I tend to be a little bit more of a striver. I wish I could say that things come easy to me, but nothing really has. I've worked my butt off for everything. I don't know. I guess it's work ethic combined with faith, combined with I have had the fortune of a really stable family and even through my lineage, married 32 years. So I don't know. I guess that's where it comes from.
The Inventor Center of the Kansas City, it looks like you were the president from August 2004 to 2012. Did you start the Inventor Center of Kansas City?
There was a woman, C.J. Boylan, that actually founded it, and she had a husband with cancer and been attending the Houston Inventors group while she took her husband out to these cancer meetings. And she started it here in Kansas City, and there were maybe 20 people going to it, and it was relatively new. And I actually had some setbacks with my Sport Shade launch because I think if there's a mistake to be made, I made it with that product launch. And so it was a much harder road than I ever imagined it would be. We finally did end up making money off of it, but oh my gosh, was it a painful journey. And so anyway, at one of those points of pain, somebody had said, check out the Inventors Club. There's a group meeting. And I went down there and I ended up attending a trade show and connecting with the people and just started loving the heart of the inventor. And I related to them and I've just felt like these were my people. And so before you know it, I'm on the board and I'm kind of a team builder, and I just used all the same skills that I always had used in business, bringing people together and letting people do what they do well. And we grew that thing, and it got to be where like 80 people a month were attending our meetings. And then we started having these nationwide inventor contests and going out and getting sponsors. And we were bringing in sponsors. This was like 20 years ago, or back before this was really that well known. We were bringing in sponsors that were giving us, $10,000 a pop, and we would host these nationwide inventor contests for them. And from that, I started meeting all the right people. I started learning where all the scams are. And we licensed 7 inventor products to companies. And I got to be in on the inside track of those deals. I really had never had any experience with licensing because I had gone the make and sell route with my product. And that's all I really knew. So this idea of licensing came up, and I realized, boy, wow, there's a lot less risk. I don't have to put the capital in. I don't have to spend the time. They've already got the distribution channel. And so I thought, this is what I need to be involved with. And so then I made steps to be involved with that.
Let me go back to Sport Shade. You actually named it Sport Shade. How did you come up with the name?
This is Sport Shade. It's a lightweight, portable, retractable awning, less than 9 pounds.
Well, it was because we invented the product out of a sports need, and it was a shade product. So one lesson learned from that on the name is we got a registered trademark, and we did defend it, but people started using the term sports shade together. And we sent some cease and desist letters, and we were effective with people stopping using that combination of words. But I found out since then from different friends who are trademark attorneys that because the term sports and shade are a little more generic, that it would actually be difficult to win a court case with that name. And what the other lesson learned was that the people that ended up being our predominant buyer for the product, they weren't really sports enthusiasts. They turned out to be more dog show people and art radio control people and hobbyists, really. Competitors and hobbyists, not so much. The baseball softball thing never really took off. So I've learned so much now from that, but that's where the name came from. In hindsight, I might have done it differently.
Your husband, do you have a lot of input on?
He's pretty much the inventor of it. I mean, I contribute from a sales and marketing side. I think we're a good team in that way. He's very smart. He's like an engineer, but I'm more of the salesperson. So together, I would throw in my 2 cents about things that I thought needed to be there to make it sellable, practical, usable. And then he did pretty much the prototyping, and he actually went to China and found a company. But how he did that was back before the internet. So we were actually looking in the yellow pages for manufacturers near us that made tents and awnings and things like that. This was where my sales and marketing came in. I said, let's identify the prospects. And he actually physically went around to all those manufacturers. And through that, none of them really wanted to be a part of it. They thought it was too risky, had other things they were making. But somebody referred us to a man in China, and that was before it was so easy to get to China. And we ended up connecting with this guy, and Stuart went over and met him, went to China for a couple weeks and went to the plant and saw everything. And they would talk to me on the telephone. And so it just kind of happened from there through referrals. But yeah, Stuart's the main inventor. He's on the patent. He's my inventor and I'm his salesperson.
How did the patent process go for you?
It went really well because he did that first patent. We were do-it-yourselfers. I don't think at that point in our lives we really recognized the value of paying experts to do their job like we do now. And he's capable of learning a lot of things, and he's very detail-oriented. So he actually did the patent himself. That early patent, he read one of those books, How to Patent Your Own Product, and he did that himself for the first one. And then we did use an attorney for the final claims because we knew that that was an important step in the process. But that first patent 20 years ago, I think we probably spent $700 on it. We spent more in maintenance fees keeping it alive than we did actually getting the patent. Now, since then, he's got about 4 or 5 patents that we've worked on, and we use attorneys now just because he doesn't have the time. But back then, we didn't really want to pay an expert, and we were feeling like we shouldn't put the capital into that. I don't know why, really.
Well, as long as you got the job done. So you got your patent. Did you start getting it out into the market before the patent?
That's another thing I think we really did wrong. We waited to get a granted utility patent, which was 3 years. That was before we even raised the money. And it's hard to say whether it was a wrong or right choice. In some ways, it was a right choice because I think the early investors were much more confident in the product because the day of that Saturday meeting, we did have a granted utility patent. So we had already waited the 3 years. And we also had real samples there. We had actually gone to China, bought, I call it a boatload of them, and shipped it back. And so we had our garage full of product and we had real something to show them, tangible. So that might have helped with their confidence in investing in the product at that time. Nowadays, I don't teach people to do it that way because it's too great of a capital outlay for most independent inventors. There's pros to it. But I think a lot of people, if you're cash strapped, there's way less expensive ways to do it, which I teach in my book, How to Sell Crowdfunding Products on TV. So that's how we did it, though.
Okay. What was the first store that you got it in? What was that like?
Oh, my gosh, that was so much fun. That is probably the greatest joy in inventing when you have your product really out there for sale in the market. It was catalogs was our first. They were easier. We could get into catalogs a lot quicker. And I think our first store, though, was smaller retail stores, little sporting goods stores and hardware stores in our local geography where the manager could actually make a decision to bring a display of maybe 16 units into their store. That was really exciting from an early standpoint. But, the other exciting steps would be then getting in Cabela's and Sam's Club, and we were on QVC. So we ended up having a lot of fun with being in retail. But, it's also got its challenges. So I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture because I think too many times inventors look at a success story of, oh, you're in retail and they think, oh, you're making tons of money. Everything's great. That's not always the case. There's a lot of expenses for that revenue. And I think that's a message it's important for me to make sure people going into it understand.
When you recommend people design today, I noticed on your video that whatever you design be kind of small so it fits on the shelf a little bit easier. Is that correct?
It really depends on the distribution channel that you're going to try to sell your product into. For the video that you're talking about is more in my capacity as a direct licensee, where I issue the licensing agreement to Inventors now at retail. And in that category, the shelf space is very narrow, and so you've got to have a very small footprint. I think anywhere in the retail store, even other places, having a small footprint is always better for the inventor and for the product, because those retailers measure every square inch by volume of sales. So every square inch of the store has a numerical value. And if you have a bigger footprint, then you need to sell more product to justify that. But if you have a physically big product and you have good profit margins built into it, you can justify that. So what I really try to teach inventors is you got to think about where is the distribution channel that most is receptive to your particular product, and then invent toward that. And sometimes that's easier said than done, because like with our sports shade, we invented it for people that play softball. But it turned out that people that play softball didn't buy it. It was only that we stumbled into people that showed dogs and people that did our radio controlled events. They bought it like crazy. And so, had I known that earlier, had I spent less money, I would have been a lot better off. But because I didn't know that, I invented it the way I thought as an inventor it should be, and then couldn't really change because we had too much cash in it the way it was.
Say, like, I really have never invented anything before. I don't know anything about the invention process, but boy, I just got this great idea and it's eating me alive. And
yeah.
What advice would you give?
Call me first and tell me the idea. I'll sign a non-disclosure. I've been at this for 20 years, never taken anybody's idea. You don't need to take people's ideas. There's so many good ideas out there. My email documents what people show me and tell me, so I don't really worry about that. But there's so much wasted money that people spend thinking that it's going to pan out for them, and it absolutely can. So I want to be the voice of absolutely you can do it, and your idea may be the multi-million-dollar winner. But there's two things that I see. Most people, they spend all the right money in all the wrong order. And patenting, for example, it's wonderful to have a patent. We've got 4 or 5 patents. I'm definitely a believer in them. But you don't do that first. That's the 5th step. There's other things to do first to manage your cash. I'm not selling people a service. I'm not a patent attorney. I'm not a prototyper. I'm not any of the other service providers that there are. They're all excellent, and you definitely need to use them, and you need to pay them when you need their services. But there's a lot of products tested and fail. And if a big company cannot launch a product to market, I think it's going to be tough for an inventor to do so. It doesn't mean they can't, but they just don't know this. And because I'm working hard right now, I'm like 53 and I'd like to earn a lot more money before I get 63, and then I want to retire and enjoy it. So I'm working really hard right now because I'm wanting to make money on product inventions. I'm motivated to do that. And because of that, I see in all the products we test that don't make it, I'm seeing the ones that do make it. And I'm also talking to other companies and manufacturers and hearing from them all the products that they're testing that don't make it and the products they're testing that do make it. And there's a thing called the black hole of information. If a major company launches a product and they test it and it fails, they don't file a patent. So it's not going to come up on your patent search. And they don't launch it to market. So it's not going to come up on Amazon or anywhere because they didn't launch it. And so inventors don't know that. There's no way for an everyday inventor to know that information. A patent attorney is not going to tell you. They don't know it, and their job's not to do that. Their job's to get you a patent. A prototyper is not going to tell you. They don't know it. That's not their job. Their job is to make you a prototype. I don't want to rain on people's parade. They call me the velvet hammer because I give hard information, and I try to do it in a soft way. But I wish someone would have told me early on the negative things. There were people that had tried my product before that when I would try to pitch it, they would say, oh, we've seen that before. There was another product came out 10 years ago and it's the blah, blah, blah. And, it had this problem, that problem, the other problem. I didn't want to hear that. I just threw more money into my product because my product's going to be the one. In hindsight, I wish I could have listened a little more. I wish I could have heard what those people had to say about those other products that didn't go that well. And then I could have made some very strategic changes in how I launched it. I was still going to launch it because I believed it was the right thing. But I would have done it less expensive. And I think the outcome would have been more lucrative faster than the road I had to go down. So that's what I would tell people to do. Just call me or send me an email, or even better yet, buy the book, go on my website, tons of free videos, and do all that. And educate yourself. There's tons of resources out there to educate yourself for free if you don't have money. YouTube and everywhere. And then get some people that will tell you the information without charging you a lot of money. They'll tell you the truth. And then choose if you're going to accept that information or reject it.
What do inventors do wrong? Is it that they fall in love and are blinded? Is there like certain things that you notice that inventors should avoid?
Yeah. The two things is doing the right things in the wrong order. I have a low-cost sequence in my book that's 7 steps, so that's important. The other thing with the blinded, I don't know how you fix that because I was absolutely blinded. And you called me confident earlier. That's a very compliment. But I think I was actually arrogant and completely blinded. I remember myself saying things to people. And even when I was raising money, I absolutely thought that this was going to be a millions and millions of dollar winner, and it was going to be an overnight success, and it was going to be easy. And I was perfectly comfortable investing lots of cash that I probably shouldn't have put into it because I just believed it so strongly. And I hear people sometimes when they're talking to me, and if it has a potential, then I'm like, yay, that's great. That confidence is wonderful because sometimes you have to have that to make it. But if I know they're telling me about a product that we've tested 5 times, 5 different ways, and it has failed every single time, and it has just not made it, and I'm trying to tell them, I just don't think that's going to fly. Major billion-dollar companies have tried to launch that very similar, it's not exactly the same as yours, but it's very similar, and it solves the same problem when we've tried lots of ways and it hasn't worked. I think you should drop it and move on. It's a money pit is what I think, and they don't want to hear that. They do not want to hear that. They're blinded by it. And if you would have told me that back in the day, I would not have heard it. I couldn't hear it. I was so blinded. I don't know how you can fix that. On the one hand, you need that confidence. You need that drive. You need that ability to overcome everybody's no and push the giant ball up the hill. But what I have found now is that I sure like it a lot better when I serve a product up to the consumer and they say, yeah, I like it. I'll take it. I want more. It's way easier when they're pulling it out of my hands than when I'm pushing the boulder up the hill. So you can be successful both ways. I've just found for me, I'm tired of pushing boulders. I'll serve it up. If people aren't going to like it, I'm going to drop it. I'm going to move on to something else as quick as I possibly can because there's plenty of other stuff that they will like.
You must just get inundated with lots and lots of ideas, I suppose.
Yeah, I look at definitely 30 to 50 new concepts a week. I go out and speak at inventor groups. So if anybody wants me to come speak at their town, just invite me. I'll come on my own dime. All I'm going to do is pitch a few of my books at half price, and I'll even give them away. I'm wanting to get the message out. But I get probably 50 to 30 submissions sometimes a day, and I'll crank through. And candidly, 90% of them I can't help with. 90% of them are not viable, and that's just the only honest way I can say it. But the 10% that are can be some awesome ideas.
When you say 90% and it's right off the top of your head, what is it that just jumps out at like not working?
That's a fair question. I think I probably need to rephrase that a little bit. 90% of the products that I see, I cannot help with would be a better way. One thing I've learned is that I don't know what's going to succeed. In fact, nobody in my business would say they know what's going to succeed because a grand slam mass market as seen on TV winner is relative to the mass market consumer, and they're changing and they're fickle and they're unpredictable, and nobody can predict what's going to succeed. All I know is what has not succeeded in the past. That's all I know. And so it really becomes about risk versus reward. To shoot a 2-minute TV commercial and test it in our category is $30,000 to $50,000 by the time you do the actual cash expense, but also the manpower, the producers, the script writing, the time. It's about a $30,000 to $50,000 investment. And so for us to put that in a product and test it and then have it fail, it's like, that hurts. Now, when it succeeds, it's a home run. It blows away everything. At one point, the Ped Egg product by one of our partners was actually selling more than the Snickers candy bar. So the volume of sales of items with the TV behind it is huge, but the life cycle is very short. So an average inventor is going to make, on the low side, $330,000 to $4.2 million in royalties. That's pretty much the spread if the product's on retail shelves. So there's a lot of money to be shared when you have the winner, but you burn a lot of cash on these tests that fail. So when I say 90% of the products I can't help with, it's not a risk-reward scenario that I want to play in anymore. If I've already burned $50,000 on a test that failed on a similar item, maybe your item is uniquely different, but it still solves the same problem as the other item, and it's close enough. Minor feature differences are not enough. I don't want to put another $50,000 into that. I've already done that. I've been down that road. I don't think that's going to happen. It doesn't mean that they can't go out somewhere else and be successful. Maybe they find somebody else to test it. Maybe someone else tests it a different way. Maybe the consumer market changes. Maybe they go to a different distribution channel because there's so many places to sell product. We're just one avenue with TV. And so it's not that the product can't be successful. It's that I don't want to put my cash into it.
I noticed that as far as a trend, it just seemed like everything connected to your phone the last 2 years, there seemed to be this enormous increase. Is it a price point that is a critical factor? How can I be successful? What do I need to invent? What's the secret? What's the insight?
I wish I knew. I don't know. When you find that one, please call me. It's back to what doesn't work or what hasn't worked in the past. You talked about the apps. We have not had a winner in our category that was connected to a phone. We all know it's coming. We do test things that are connected to phones. So far, nothing is sold at the level we need for us to have found the right app phone. So whenever something comes and it's an app or connected to a phone, immediately it has a little bit of a negative mark right now. That's a strike against it, actually, for us, only because we have not had one succeed. At some point, that pendulum will change and one will succeed. And then there'll probably be a domino of tons of others. The mass market consumer is not ready for it yet. That, at least today, at this moment, I'm speaking to you. Tomorrow it could change. So that's a thing that's not so great.
Are you a fan of crowdfunding?
I love the opportunity that crowdfunding has for inventors, and there's absolutely a place for it. But because things nowadays with Amazon selling things online and anybody from overseas, internationally, being able to go on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, any of those, and see what's there on the public domain, we have a huge knockoff problem right now where those assets, we have that with our 60-second salad. It was a Kickstarter success. And within days of the Kickstarter success, it was being sold on Amazon by offshore knockoffs using our assets, calling it the 60-second salad, saying it's patent pending, putting it on Amazon. And there's just no way to fight that. So I think it's dangerous to put ideas on the public domain unless you're at the right sequence where you're ready for that step. I would much rather see inventors show me their idea confidentially and privately before they make the decision. If you're going to go to all the trouble to get your crowdfunding promo ready to go, prior to pushing launch or be on the public domain, if inventors would just send me a confidential link to my email with their information and let me have just a second to look at it. And if I like it, then I can say, could you just wait another 2 weeks before you go live? And let me do some private testing. Let me get our testing process going and see if we can get anybody home. And if we can, then we can launch this way better. Let's just hold off. Well, I'll do a licensing agreement. We'll sign the papers. And then we'll invest in seeing if we can make that thing happen and paying them the royalties before they go live. Once they go live, it doesn't matter if it funds or doesn't fund. That's really not the demographic that we target for our product. So your crowdfunding campaign could fail, and it could still be a wild success in our category, or vice versa. My bottom line is show me stuff privately before everyone else sees it. Let me have a chance to be speed to market, to test it confidentially. And then that's where we can make some money.
I like that. I think that one of the biggest problems is the knocking off of products and ideas that people have. You must have seen somebody rip off your sports shade.
Generally, a patent is only valuable in the hands of someone that has the pockets to defend it. So this is what I like to tell inventors. If $1 billion company comes to you and you're the inventor and you have a patent, and they say, I love your product, I love your patent, I want to license it and pay you $4.2 million. You take that deal. Take that deal and say, thank you very much. Where do I sign? But what happens is I talk to inventors all the time where we're offering them the deal. And then they say, no, I'm sorry, I don't want a license. I don't think that's enough money for me. And so I'm not going to license it with you. That's fair enough. They have the right to do that. But this is a capital society. And so what they are doing is they're saying, I don't want to be on your team. I would prefer to be your competitor. So the individual inventor is saying to the $1 billion company, I'm going to be your competitor. And so the $1 billion company, because few products test well, and when they find one that tests well, they're going to launch it. And I'm not talking about morality. I'm not talking about all those wonderful intrinsic values that people have. I'm saying $1 billion company is launching that product and they're competing with you. And if you want to fight in court, you can fight in court. But what they're going to do is they're going to play a game because they're selling your product. They're making revenue. They have income coming in. They put a lot of money into that income coming in, and they put a lot of money into the legal fight. Here you are over here with no revenue coming in and just expenses, and you don't even have the ability to sell very many of them, and you're trying to fight them, and they drag that thing out in court as long as possible because it doesn't matter to them. They're watching a bell curve, and they're making money, and they're going to drag that thing out until the bell curve says consumers are not buying this product very much anymore. And the bell curve starts to go down, the products, aren't selling quite as much, and that's about the time they're either going to settle with the inventor and pay him $1 million. The inventor would have got $4.2 million if they would have signed from the beginning. But no, they want to burn 3 to 5 to 7 years, and then they end up settling, and maybe the inventor gets $1 or $2 million. It's peanuts. And how much did the inventor spend in cash for that legal? And how much did they spend in time? And how much did they spend in this negative energy? So I'm not making a moral comment on whether companies should steal people's ideas or not steal people's ideas. Of course, you could say that that's wrong. But if you're on the other side of it, you can also argue that they're seeing products that are on the public domain and they're selling them and they're competing. And if they lose in court, they're going to pay. And if they win in court, they're going to win. We're outgunned. It's like a king coming to a peasant saying, would you like to come spend time at my castle? And the peasant saying, no, thank you. I prefer to stay here in my land. And I'm going to say all kinds of bad stuff about you and not be a good follower. It's a tough thing for me to talk about because I see it so clearly on both sides. I see it from the inventor with the patent, and I see it from the big company that wants to make some money on products and pay inventors a good royalty.
If I've created something, I would want it to go to market. It just seems to me that, licensing is just such a way to go. And do you think the reason that people don't want a license is because they feel like 3% or 7% or whatever percent is just too low?
Yeah, a lot of times that's it. In our category, it's a lower royalty number, like a 1 to 3 or maybe a 1 to 5, because the volumes are so high. We're going to sell 5 to 8 million pieces per year. That's a lot of volume, and our costs to get to market are high. So inventors will often focus on a royalty rate, like a 2% or a 3%, and say, oh, that's not enough. And I'm trying to out-educate them that you can't focus on the royalty percentage because it's a percentage of volume. So a 2% royalty in our category is still going to make you significantly more, like 10 times more than you would make with a higher royalty. If you got let's say you got a 5 or a 7 or a 10% royalty, that sounds better. But if the volumes are still only a couple 100,000 pieces a year, that's still only $20,000 to $50,000 in royalty per year. And so you're going to make significantly less in actual cash. So part of the problem is inventors don't understand the math of what's going on, that they're getting money without expense. They also misunderstand the amount of capital that is required to bring a product to market and the amount of effort. And they think they can do it on their own. And sometimes they can. There are people that do. But for most people, they probably are going to need some help. So I think those are probably the two biggest reasons. Misunderstanding of the math of the percentage of royalties as it relates to actual cash in your hand, and misunderstanding of the amount of effort that's going to be required to make and sell a product, and the amount of funding that they're going to need in order to be successful.
What happened to Sportshade? Are you still selling it? Are you still involved in it?
Yeah, it's still on the market. I've got just one online reseller. There's a bell curve to every product. I probably should have just taken it off the market and been done with it years ago, but I mostly keep it around for posterity. And it makes a decent profit every year. It's definitely cash positive now, which is good, but it's at the end of its life cycle. So I don't really try on it very hard. It's on Facebook and it's on a few dropship kind of sites. So it's still there. I think I keep it alive because it's such a scar-filled lesson. And I like that. I like having it still around for that. It keeps me grounded, I think.
Let's say I'm an inventor. Do you recommend that I go to like some trade shows that have to do with my invention?
First of all, what I recommend people do is find their local inventor group. They have them in almost every city. Or if you go on meetup.com, there's local entrepreneurial groups, business groups. Business groups are probably going to encourage the make and sell route. The inventor groups are more savvy about the licensing angle. And it's not very expensive to go to these groups. So some of them are free and some of them might be like a $5 kind of thing. So that's a really good way to connect with local resources. I do recommend people connect with local resources and just connect to their local community. If they have a product in a particular category, there are trade shows for just about every kind of category. I would recommend someone go and walk the show prior to exhibiting. What a lot of inventors do and what I did was by the time you exhibit, even if you do it on a low budget, you're going to spend $5,000. By the time you spend about $2,500 to get your 10 by 10 square booth space, and then you've got travel, and then you got some shipping, and then you got, it's about $5,000, about as low as you can do it. I would go to the show first and go with an eye looking for the booths that are representing your competitors, because today's competitors are tomorrow's strategic allies. So you're going and you're collecting cards and you're talking to different competitors and you're asking them about similar products. You're asking them, how many of these do you sell? It's amazing what you can find out by asking people common questions. And that's a benchmark for you, because if a major company is there, some sales guy offhandedly tells you that they sell 1 million pieces a year of this, well, now you know, okay, they're selling 1 million pieces a year of this and they're a major company. So maybe me thinking I'm going to sell 4 million pieces in year one is not such a realistic goal. Maybe I ought to lower my goal and make it to if I sell 20,000 pieces this first year. So it kind of gives you a benchmark. So you're deciding, I'm going to compete with this company, or maybe I'm going to try to license to them and be a strategic ally. And you'll learn. You look at different marketing things, look at the colors. Like I noticed with dusting products, if it's a dusting product, it tends to be in a blue and white package. But if it's a floor cleaning product, it tends to be in a yellow and white package. I only know that because I'm testing a dusting product in my inventing workshop. We're inventing something in that area. So we're kind of looking at those things. And we want to come in, you got to decide, do I want to come in and be similar to what the other products are and show that my value is different because of my features and benefits? Or do I want to be the purple cow and come in with, maybe I'm going to be purple instead of yellow and white? So it just gives you things to think about so that when you do show your product on the public domain, or even when you submit it to me in private, that, you've thought it through and you're pitching your product initially in the very best possible way that it can. So trade shows are everywhere. There's tons of them. You just type in what your category, like a hardware product trade show. So yeah, do those.
There's a licensing expo in Las Vegas. Do you attend that?
I used to attend that. 20 years ago, that was the sporting goods trade show. And I attended it, paid the $5-10 grand to go pitch my sport shade. That's where I met my retailers. Retailers came and I had goods to sell to retailers. And then there were a lot of licensing that people there, like NFL people, at one point they changed the name to the licensing show. I don't think that that's licensing in the way that you and I are talking about it, where I'm an inventor and I want to license the rights to my intellectual property to a manufacturer who's going to pay me a royalty. I think that show is more focused on big brands, like if you're a Purina or if you're the NFL or the collegiate basketball, you want to sell the licensing logo rights to be put onto products. So with my Sport Shade, for example, I've got a big banner, and I could have gone and paid the collegiate football $10,000 at the time and 10% sales, and I could have got the rights to put K-State on the front of my product. I have to still sell my product, but I'm banking on the fact that with K-State, people from K-State are going to buy it. So it's licensing in that sense. It's really more I license from them. I think for most inventors, that's a dangerous road to go down initially because you don't have much cash and you're going to pay to use a logo, still have to sell the product. And so my opinion is if you can't sell the product without the logo, I'm not convinced you can sell it with the logo because the product still has to have some value. People aren't going to say, oh, this is a big pile of nothing, but it's got K-State on it, I'm going to buy it. If they're not going to buy it without the K-State logo because it's solving a problem that they want, it's providing some value, I just don't think the logo is going to make that much difference. Now, if you can sell your product and people are buying your product and you think, oh, people are buying it and they happen to be football enthusiasts for collegiate teams, well, then maybe that would help. Maybe buying that rights to that logo would help you sell more. So you just have to soberly assess that. Just like any business expense, you have to soberly assess, am I going to get a return on this investment? And you're basically guessing. But I think you need to guess with worst case and best case in mind.
What are your thoughts on social media? Are you a fan?
I love social networks. I do. I don't think of myself as like a celebrity or anything like that. I'm just a regular person that lives here in Kansas City. But I am known in the inventor world because I go around to speak to the inventor groups and I've got the book and I'm actively looking for ideas and I'm working really hard. My name is out there quite a bit. But mostly I just want to connect to people like you that have a platform to educate people. I hope that people listen to this and share this and tell their friends this, because this is a fantastic way for anybody that has an idea to get a little bit of dose of reality, before they launch in with their cash. By listening to somebody like you and people sharing their inventor stories, an inventor will save thousands of dollars and years of time.
Well, I appreciate that. And any final thoughts?
To me, making money is the success. I know there's a lot of people that teach that you should do all about it for the fun. And that's great if you have money and you don't spend much. But I'm really more about making money on products. I mean, this is a job for me. I'm trying to make money and I want other people to make money. I think it's important for inventors to make sure they do that in sequence, that they don't spend all the right money in the wrong order. I mean, in my book, I have a sequence that I think is the least expensive, highest return way of inventing.
And what's the name of the book?
The actual name on Amazon is Sell Crowdfunding Products on TV, Fast Track to Retail, using As Seen on TV, DIY, Kickstarter, and Indiegogo. If you just Google Sell Crowdfunding Products on TV, it'll come up on Amazon. And I have it in print, ebook, and audio. And I'd love 5-star reviews. I can pay finder's fees too. So if people tell me they heard me on your show or they mention your show, or I can pay finder's fees to you or anybody up to $100,000 per product just for showing me the product, just for connecting me to the product. It has to be documented by my email. That's what I use for tracking purposes. So if you send me a name of the product in the subject line and then a link to a public domain demo video or a connection to an inventor that's going to show me a private confidential thing. So you could get up to $100,000 per product. You just never know. It's, you're walking around the world and there could be a pearl or a gold nugget laying right in front of you. But if you don't know what it looks like, you can't identify it, then you're not going to pick it up. So I'm trying to get people like you and people like your audience to pay attention, to know what these kind of products look like. And when you see something and it's early stage, get it in front of me. I want to look at everything. I would rather look at everything and say, sorry, I can't help you, than have you miss a gold nugget and both of us lost out because somebody else saw it and we didn't.